Hello and welcome. This is the vCD Roundtable. We are celebrating episode number 62. And as with so many other episodes in the last 2 years, today the newest or hottest topic is changes in the CSP program, or most importantly, the complete uncertainty created with the newest changes in the CSP programs. But before we get into all the different wonderful announcements or non-announcements, welcome, Sasha. How's life down in? Where are you at the moment?
Miami at the Cloud Fest. Hi, Matthias.
Yeah, hi guys, Matthias. So finally, the only constant in life is change. All right, Eve, what's new in the CSP program?
Yeah, I mean, everybody got the wonderful messages which we spoke about before Explore Las Vegas, that only a certain amount of CSPs are going to stay in the program and that there are going to be changes to the program. We were expecting that we would know more what's going to happen to Europe, but it seems like that for now, Broadcom actually is not willing to make any changes whatsoever in Europe at all, besides the complete management of overage, etc. So let's maybe start with that topic and cover that elephant first. So during Explore, Broadcom announced already in Las Vegas during the advisory board that first they were of the opinion that there shouldn't be any overcommit licenses at all. If you want to have more, you can buy licenses. They figured out very quickly that that's not going to work, so they still allowed everybody to create 125%. So, for example, you buy 1,000 cores, you can actually create keys for 1,250 cores. But how are they going to handle overage starting November 1st or November 3rd? I'm not 100% sure when exactly the financial year starts, but nevertheless, whether it's November 1st or November 3rd. A new product license guide is out, and that is actually more confusing than anything. And there is also examples which are not solving the majority of the questions anyone has. It's actually the situation we have is all the changes could mean now everything. So let me plot the ideal scenario. The ideal scenario is Broadcom says, as long as you stick within these 25%, and it's only a temporary usage, which is your first problem in the new definitions, because it says temporary, but no definition of temporary. So if you only temporarily actually go over your 100%, then Broadcom is going to tell you don't do that again, and you're going to be fine. No overage calculation. That's scenario one. Scenario two is the absolute extreme on the other side, is if you read it the absolute extreme way the other way, then being only for 5 minutes over with one core could lead that you need to buy additional cores. And now it gets tricky because Broadcom says also in the same document that the minimum order amount is 500 cores. So by just actually for 5 minutes, which is the analysis interval, the system checks. If only for 5 minutes you are one core over, this could lead within that specific contract that you are going to purchase 500 cores more. I mean, that would make you save for the next quarter because all of a sudden you have 500 cores more, but it would quickly add to your bill from that perspective. We tried now several times because we had several people from different teams within Broadcom giving us different ways on feedback on that. But whenever we ask this, like, where is that in writing? Can we have this in a confirmed way that we can actually rely on that? Because as some of you have heard also, there is a huge back billing scenario going on with Broadcom at the moment for all the periods since April 24 up until February 25. Currently going on, and some service providers settled that already. Some service providers paid for it. That's ongoing all around the globe as well. This actually left most service providers in the belief, because many were told it's like there is never going to be back billing or anything like that. All of a sudden it appears. So everybody wants to have something in writing. They tried to create a fake FAQ document, but that FAQ document, as I read it, is actually not answering all the questions. So at the moment, you as a service provider have to decide what you are preparing yourself for the scenario. Is like, it's all going to be good as always. same people as believe there will be no backbilling. Or you believe the absolute extreme on the other side is like, yeah, if you're over, you're going to pay at least for 500 more cores. So that's status quo of one of the first changes, which we are going to discuss at the moment. Sasha, your opinion on that?
Yeah, so that you mentioned most of that. The interesting point is also what you need to expand your contract for the next quarter. So that's fine with this 500, though it's a big problem. And you have to expand per contract. So if you have one or more contracts, you have to expand your contracts for every contract where is one more overage maybe, or one more core minute overage, 5 minutes overage. That will be a big problem. And I think there will be a lot of discussions in the future. Next step is a big question. What happens with back billing of the overage starting with 1st of November now? Because there was an announcement from Broadcom where they clearly said, hey, starting with November, there will not be a monthly overage billing like we have it like we had it in the last months. So that also becomes interesting because no monthly back billing. What does it mean? Maybe we get a big bill at the end of the quarter, or we get a big bill at the end of the, I don't know, contract year, or at the end of the contract, like we received it with the big overage billings now from April 2024 to December, January. And yeah, I hope we will get out more information from the Broadcom teams. We clearly also wrote a few emails and asked what are the real rules, and maybe can we get it in written, what happens. And they explained it a few weeks ago and said, hey, they want to take a look at the average, and if the average is below or over 500, you need to expand your contract. Other ones said they absolutely have no clue how they will handle it. Other ones said to us, hey, we have absolutely no clue how we will handle it in the future. And that's a bit challenging for the service providers. And I clearly got the information, or I understand the information from Broadcom for service providers who have only their own business. They can manage all of that. Let's say it's not easy, but they can handle it. But all of the primary white label service providers, they have no clue what the secondaries do. And we don't have weeks or months where we can inform the secondary ones to say, hey, if you're running to an overage now starting with November, be careful. So I would love to have, so I'm really okay if Broadcom said, hey, we need changes, explain the changes, and hey, you have now 3 months to inform your secondary white labels or change your business, change your infrastructure, and then it's okay for me. It's not good, but it's okay, and we can handle it. But now with only a few days before with the announcement, that will become hard. Additional to that, we saw it now together with all the changes. There is a new price list starting 3rd of November. That was the first one, and now we have different list prices for EMEA and the rest of the world. And that's funny. So all the announcements with AI is now included and so on. It looks like it is everywhere, but not in EMEA. So, and then today or yesterday, I took a look in the Partner Central and I saw, hey, there is a new pricing guide. And now they changed it again. It's now starting with December. The new prices are available in all the world without EEA. So that's the next change. That means Switzerland, Great Britain, and so on will change to the new price list with a list price of $400. and they have included AI. And for EEA, you have to pay separate for it. Next point that becomes interesting with these changes is in the product license guide, there's written that all of the expand of the commit. So if you use one more, you have to pay 500 more. And there is written, you have to pay the new price at the state of the expand of the contract. So that means outside the EEA, starting with December, you have to pay based on a list price of $400 US. That's the next point where I would say, hey, maybe a better communication in the front was beneficial. Was beneficial maybe. But yeah, we don't have it, and we need to work with the informations we currently have and need to try to figure out what's next. So to make a real business out of it. Additional to that, so everyone or many service providers thought about, hey, let's go with advanced threat protection and so on. But also advanced threat protection is no longer on the price list. So we have now vDefend, like we had it before. And we have VMware Cloud Foundation Advanced Cyber Compliance. This includes now advanced threat protection and Live Recovery Manager. So also Live Recovery Manager is no longer available as an add-on. That's the next problem. And with this VMware Cloud Foundation Advanced Cyber Compliance, you have to license your complete infrastructure. You are not able to say, hey, I only want to license one cluster, like we had it with advanced threat protection, for example. You need to license your complete infrastructure. And that's the point.
So Sasha, it's even not possible to say I license a VI workload domain.
No, not a workload domain. You can...
The whole infrastructure, everything.
The whole infrastructure. Maybe there is a way if you say I deploy a dedicated VCF for it.
A fleet.
I'm not. Yeah, so a complete dedicated infrastructure with no communication between the both ones. That's maybe a solution, so that you say, hey, that's a complete new infrastructure. That's a dedicated infrastructure, but that's not the way you normally want to go with VCF.
Exactly.
And additional to that, it's a big question mark. So we asked this question in a few ways also the last weeks. Do you need vDefend and Cloud Foundation Advanced Cyber Compliance? Or is vDefend included if you license your complete cluster with ACC, so Advanced Cyber Compliance? And that's all. So many questions, especially also with Live Recovery Manager. So we saw a lot of customers who only wants it for a few workloads.
That's exactly the thing. Because in the past, Sasha, honestly speaking, and I'm close saying that that's kind of an Oracle approach. But I think I should not say that. But honestly, in the past, saying if you need to license vDefend for a whole cluster, that makes perfect sense. I can choose for each single cluster which features I'm running on and what I'm relying on. But now saying if you need the cyber defense thingy, I even can't remember the name, need to license all infrastructure. Sorry, but that's misjudged by Broadcom. I think many customers won't take that route because you need it only for a small portion of the infrastructure.
I think the problem is that we make no difference between service providers and resell. Because on resell, I totally agree, this product feature, and you can use it for your complete company. And what we saw from Paul Turner in the keynotes it's an absolutely beneficial product with the advanced cyber compliance. You can make your company complete secure with that, and that's good. And you need it for all your clusters then in a company. But if you are running as a service provider, that will not work. Then you need to break it down on a workload domain that you can say, hey, this customer has a dedicated workload domain and I can license it to him. Because if we saw it, we are on a list price around about $200 and with $200, that's round about the half of the VMware Cloud Foundation, and nobody knows if we need on top vDefend. That's currently the big question. And then nearly double the price for every customer on the VMware stuff. It's not the service provider business. It's not a business where you make so many money that you can easily say, hey, no problem, I double the price. And that's currently, from my perspective, the biggest challenge on all of that. And in combination with what happens with disaster recovery, so there is a document also where it's written that disaster recovery environments must be full licensed, independent or if they are running active virtual workloads or not. And that's the next big problem maybe for the service providers, because we know many service providers who have disaster recovery environments running. And maybe also there a bit more communication together with the partners, talk about it, talk about solutions. Because when I think about we have an on-prem customer with their on-prem infrastructure running VMware, completely licensed. And they have a commitment with the service providers where they say, hey, this is a disaster recovery environment. If on-prem everything breaks, we can start up the virtual machines on your side. So at that moment, normally the on-prem servers uses no licenses. And for that scenarios, why can't we find any solution? And when I talked also in the last days with service providers here in Miami, they clearly said, hey, we will be happy to say, hey, we need to charge 20% or 30%. That's not a problem. But we cannot license the complete infrastructure for the whole time and waiting for a break of the on-prem infrastructure. So it's hard. And also we have another customer where they're running a disaster recovery data center in case the primary fails. They normally don't use the secondary one. It's completely empty. It's only running. And with the new licenses, we have no option to license it. Or that we can say, hey, maybe in a case of disaster, the licenses move to the disaster recovery side.
Interesting new work. I think the next few weeks hopefully give us a lot of answers to any one of these questions, because at the moment it's just guesswork. And the only suggestion we can give every service provider is more or less prepare for the worst. And that means license everything or be prepared to get a pretty hefty additional bill. Plus, for me, it's still completely unclear what happens to the current quarter. So even if I commit for the next quarter, it's also not 100% clear that you are not getting charged for the current quarter.
Yeah, it's only in written there will be no monthly charge of overage. So maybe a quarterly charge, a 2 monthly charge, a yearly charge, nobody knows.
And so, yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting. And especially a lot of these questions were raised in the last couple of weeks or months already by multiple people. So I'm confused that a lot of them are not covered in the FAQ document in any way, form, or shape. We will see. We will see. It's also the other big point is, I'm not sure because there was a little emergency I had to quickly rush to, but for me, the other big question, and Guruf, tell me if you covered that already, is there is a lot of confusion about how pseudo white label programs could look like in the future, where people say it's like, yeah, we do sale and lease back and all of that. There are still tons of questions in these documents as well. It's like none of that is really 100% clear, and based on, again, what we have seen in the last 3 to 6 months, you need to have a very, very clear understanding on how this model is going to look like.
We don't covered it, but I saw in Europe 2 service providers who think they have a solution, and everyone wants to have to talk with any of the leadership teams and so on. I had now meetings here in the US where we talked about solutions, how that can work, and there are some partners who have solutions. And to be fair, there's only one partner where I think they have the solutions, how I understand the complete program, how that can work. So they have their own data center. The hardware is owned by this primary service provider. They own the VMware infrastructure. They own Cloud Director. The logo of this partners is real big on the bottom of the Cloud Director in every view. And from the let's call it secondary partner, it's a small logo on the top. So that's the only solution where I say, hey, that's how I understand how to handle it.
Which was also the way on how they explained it in Las Vegas as the only acceptable way. So anything where the hardware is still sitting inside the old, let's say, sub-CSP's data center, from my understanding, currently is in clear violation of the Broadcom terms and conditions. There are rumors that this might be okay. However, there is the clear definition also in regards to who has to have the admin privileges on shared contracts. And that is very, very clear that the administrative privileges need to be with the primary CSP. And administrative privileges are documented within the VCF guidelines and documents. So this is nothing where people say it's like, yeah, this is very vague. You can actually argue it this way or that way. It's like, no, admin privileges are and have always been in the VMware world, been very, very clearly defined. And that's basically leading back to the product or the only approach, which Sasha also mentioned, where you actually have to completely turn it in. You're completely a sub-CSP with clear visibility, which Broadcom said several times, and it's even in some of the documents, by the main CSP towards the end customer. So let's say I'm service provider Charlie, and I'm going to actually allow service provider Delta to actually provide these types of services. Then on every homepage, on every page, the logo of service provider Charlie needs to be visible, which also means if the end customer of service provider Delta, let's call them Echo for simplicity, Echo needs support. If for whatever reason Delta does not provide it in a way or form or shape, it needs to go back to Charlie. At no point in time, and that's also very clearly stated in the current documentation, can Charlie outsource support to Delta. So the Delta service provider, the sub-CSP, needs to really, really provide additional managed services on top of it. They cannot charge for anything around the base infrastructure whatsoever. It's very, very clear that Broadcom does not want to have that as of today in the new program. Again, this might change. Again, Broadcom might make corrections. I mean, we have seen enough corrections in the last year and a half. So nothing means it's going to be in stone. But I think my personal suggestion would be if anyone wants to really see a continuation in the CSP program, then the thing which needs to change is urgently create clarity. Because at the moment is service providers, for risk mitigation purposes, have only two possibilities. They can either continue the VMware bandwagon, but then they need to actually go below one other in the model which Sasha said, because that's the only one which is 100% confirmed. Or if that's not the possibility, switch platforms. As sad as it is. And again, we are 100% VMware shop. We in ComDivision only do VMware. We do not actually support or prepare any plans for moving anyone off the platform. That's none of our business currently. But to be realistic, we see that more and more service providers are currently in re-auditing all their industry certifications and everything else. And many of them get challenged by the auditors. It's like, what is your future position with Broadcom?
And funny part, so I had a few discussions in the last 3 weeks with service providers who planned to change the platform or did an assessment of different vendors. And they clearly said the legal teams also found points in the other contracts with the other platform services where they clearly said, hey, multi-tenancy is not allowed. And the sales guys from this vendor said, you can use it, nobody cares. But maybe that's also not the right solution and the right way to go. So
Yeah.
that's also funny. And additional to that, they clearly also said they tested a lot of platforms, and in many platforms, multi-tenancy over API, you saw virtual machine names of the other tenants and so on. So if you do your assessment, really take a look on the one side, take a look, what does it mean for your performance? How can you use your resources you currently have physically, and how many more you might need? And additional to that, take a look at API. Is it really multi-tenancy, and what are the risks, and define the risks of the other software?
And here it comes. It's like we have seen all these discussions about it's accepted that you're going to misuse that. A lot of the people who actually worked with that accepted solution in the past with VMware were the ones which were upset then when once Broadcom came around the corner and said, it's like, we don't care about whatever was accepted before. We only care about what's in the contract. And the contract says you can't do that. So, from that perspective, it's going to be, let's say, at least a very interesting approach. And I'm not confused. I'm actually, I heard similar things that some of the other, even the managed service contracts do not allow multi-tenancy because some of them don't have full multi-tenancy features. And again, by US law, that might bring up liability. At least in one case, I heard that they did not actually put that in the contract because they feared that if any of their service providers would get sued, they would get sued as well. So they actually said, we are actually going to put non-multi-tenancy in the contract and then tell everybody verbally that they can use it. It's like, it's a funny world out there. But this is what it is. And I think, did we miss anything which we still need to cover? I think we created enough uncertainty, but I think that's the only thing which there is at the moment. There is a lot of uncertainty. We asked several times in the last couple of weeks to get definitive answers. And the only thing we got is actually announcement that we would get anything, but we didn't get anything, whether it was in the US or Europe. So at the moment, the only thing we can do is the same with what we did with all our customers, is warn everybody of the worst potential scenario, also share with everybody the ideal scenario, which is the most favorable scenario, and then hope we get something in the middle and not one of the extremes.
Yes.
But yes, any final words from Sunny Vienna?
Oh, no. No, honestly, I think Broadcom just don't like their service providers. And I don't get why they are trying to ruin those companies. Seems like it's I don't get the story behind the curtain, but yeah. I don't understand everything.
That is the point. And what my point on all of this is even more is why not actually create clarity? I don't have an issue if someone says it's like, hey, we really want to actually stop this program. We really don't see any business value in it. It's fine. It's like, I might not like that answer, but I can actually work with that answer. The biggest problem I have at the moment is this complete, let's say, situation where we just don't get any answers, anything reliable, and no one is actually giving you what we need to know on how it's going to continue. And I'm also kind of expecting that this podcast episode, we will get a bunch of emails in the next couple of days for this one. In the end, do we need to, we are doing this for our community and not for Broadcom personally. And if we would have had better answers, we would have given the answers. But I also feel it is our duty to actually make very, very clear to everybody on what is the, let's say, worst case scenario expectation whatsoever we see. And at the moment, to be said enough, it is what it is. So we need to deal with it.
Yeah, so I would say, like famous last words. I would ask Broadcom to just man up and start an honest discussion and tell the service providers what the goal is, what the results should look like, what Broadcom's vision is all around those different service providers. Just man up.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's see what happens now. Ricky Cooper is now head of the CSP unit. Maybe he brings more clarity in all of that. He is a man of clear words, so hopefully we get all of this solved and have clear rules. And to be fair, not everyone will like these decisions Ricky Cooper will take, but then we have clear rules and not 1,000 different rules and rumors and so on. And because that's the biggest problem. Currently, we said every service provider, hey, let's wait until February. Let's talk in February. What's next? Then you have still 1 year to change the platform or take your decisions. But currently, we need the rules. We need informations. Also with the cancelled of the contracts globally, but currently not in EMEA or not in the EEA. That's a big question mark for all service providers, especially the small ones, secondary white label ones in EEA. So nobody knows what's next.
So I think we summed it all up. We brought it all together. Let's hope that the next episode is going to be a bit more fun and we can finally talk about solutions for this. And I'm more than willing, if we get final answers on how all of these scenarios work, is to even bring a breaking news special edition where we cover all the latest and greatest, or get someone on the line who can actually give clear answers to all these questions, because I think that's the minimum the service providers deserve. Get a clear answer, man up, as Matthias said, and get everybody the answers they need. People might not like it. That's fine. But I think at this stage everybody is fine with getting just clear answers and not living in the dark anymore. So the next planned episode is going to be roughly in 4 weeks, short before Christmas. So it's going to be our Christmas head episode as every year. But before that, if anything happens, if anything shows up, we're going to rush something in between. Also, I want to let you know there is something else on the podcast horizon coming to start with me pretty soon. Stay tuned for that. I will have a very interesting list of speakers to join me on that other format. I will post it as soon as we know it. For those in the Frankfurt area who are listening in live, because I'm not sure when we are going to post this, we are going to be at the Explore on tour in Frankfurt next week. So visit us there. And other than that, our team is going to be in the Middle East the week after. And Sasha and I are going to be back in the US beginning of December. If you want to meet us in person, let us know. And we will be more than happy to join you. Thank you all for listening in and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. See you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ping us.
Thanks. Bye.